Welcome to From Dorms to Desks, job hunting tips for those early in their careers, a podcast brought to you by College Recruiter job search site, which believes that every student and recent grad deserves a great career, and hosted by Work Defined. Join our AI co-hosts as they dive into tips, tricks, and insights that will help you land your next part-time, seasonal, internship, or entry-level job. Let's get your career started.
Okay, I want you to picture the perfect candidate. And maybe it's you.
Right.
You have spent weeks, maybe even months, curating this perfect professional version of your life. The resume is razor sharp. Every bullet point is quantified. Mm-hmm. The cover letter, it's a masterpiece. You've practiced your interview answers in the shower until you sound, completely natural.
It's the standard high achiever checklist. You build this fortress and you make sure there are no cracks.
Exactly. You are the architect of your own image.
Yeah.
Until you get to the very end of the process. The finish line is right there, and then you hit the one part of the application that trips people up constantly.
Because it's the one thing you can't fully control.
The references.
It
is the wild card. And honestly, for most of us, it's just an afterthought. We scramble through our contacts, try to find 3 people who won't embarrass us, and then just cross our fingers.
That fingers crossed strategy is, it's pretty dangerous.
And that's what we're talking about today. We're diving into a piece by Vicki Salemi. She's a career expert at Monster.com, and this was published recently on College Recruiter.
And look, this isn't just another list of do's and don'ts. Salemi is really pulling back the curtain on how recruiting works, how it actually works inside the machine.
Right.
She's making this really compelling argument that we need to stop viewing references as just a bureaucratic formality, a box to check.
And start viewing them as what?
A strategic asset.
That is the mission for this deep dive. We want to shift the mindset from simply finding 3 names to building what I like to call a personal hype squad.
Or, to use the exact term Salemi uses, which I think is just perfect.
Go on.
Your advocates.
Okay, I want to stick a pin in that word immediately. Advocate.
Right. Because
words matter so much in a job hunt. Reference. It sounds so passive to me. It sounds like a file in a dusty cabinet.
An advocate implies action. It implies a defense, active support. And that is the whole distinction Salemi is drawing here.
Yeah.
Think about it. When you list a reference, you aren't just proving you worked at Company X from 2020 to 2022. HR can verify that with a background check. They don't need a phone call for that.
So it's not about the facts.
No, a reference check is fundamentally different. It is a character check.
So if the resume is the what you did, the data, the reference is the how you did it.
Precisely. An advocate is someone who, as the source puts it, has your back. They are there to vouch for your work ethic, your ability to handle stress, and, frankly, the airport test.
The airport test? What's that?
It's the classic recruiter question. If I were stuck in an airport with this person for 6 hours during a layover, would I be miserable? Are they a good human being? Your resume cannot answer that. Only an advocate can.
Which, let's be honest, is probably the deciding factor between 2 equally qualified candidates.
So often, yeah.
But this creates a bottleneck. I think there's a huge misconception, I know I had it for years, that a reference must be your direct supervisor.
The prevailing myth. It causes so much anxiety.
But isn't that what HR expects? If I don't list my manager, doesn't it look like I'm hiding something?
Not necessarily. Salemi is very clear on this. Your advocates can come from anywhere, as long as they have firsthand knowledge of your work ethic.
So it's not about their title.
No, it's about the quality of the insight, not the hierarchy. If you had a bad boss, they are a bad reference. Simple as that.
Okay, so walk us through the roster then. If we're not just looking at the direct boss, who else makes the cut?
Well, for students or recent grads, the source points to professors. But, and this is a key point, not just the one whose lecture you sat in at the back.
You mean someone you actually worked with?
Exactly, a professor you did research with. Because that mimics a job. It requires discipline, deadlines, critical thinking.
Got it.
But for professionals, Salemi highlights a category that I think is vastly underutilized, and it's actually really strategic.
Which is?
Vendors and clients.
Oh, that's interesting. Using a vendor seems like a flex.
It is a bit of a power move. Think about the psychology.
Yeah.
Your boss has to work with you. A client chooses to work with you.
That is a really strong distinction.
And consider a vendor. You're the client to them. So you have the power in that relationship. If a vendor says, I loved working with this person, it speaks volumes.
It says something about how you treat people when you don't have to be nice to them.
Exactly. It signals emotional intelligence. It shows you don't just punch down. So yeah, don't be afraid to look laterally or even externally.
Okay, so we've widened the pool. We're looking for advocates from all angles. Now, is there a magic number? The application forms usually have 3 slots. Is that just arbitrary?
No, 3 is still the sweet spot, and that's based on Salemi's corporate recruiting background.
Why 3, though? Why not just one amazing person who thinks I walk on water?
It's about triangulation. 1 positive review could be an outlier. Maybe they're just your friend.
Right.
2 is a coincidence. But 3 distinct people from different contexts all saying you're high-performing. That's a pattern. It gives the recruiter data reliability.
But let's get real for a second. The source is pretty honest about this. Do they actually call all 3? Because that takes time.
Often, no. Sometimes they don't call any. Salemi admits that in her recruiting days, there were times they just didn't reach out.
So why are we stressing about this perfect list if they might not even call? It feels like preparing for a test that might get canceled.
Because of the signaling. They want to see the list. They want to know you can produce 3 people willing to vouch for you. It's like a credit check.
If you can't list 3 people, that's a huge red flag.
It suggests you've burned bridges, or you haven't made an impact. And there's another catch. Some employers have a strict policy where they must speak to at least 1 reference before an offer. It's a compliance thing.
So the takeaway is,
always assume they will be called. Never, ever bluff with a reference list.
okay, so we need 3 advocates. We know they don't have to be our boss.
Are you an HR or talent leader trying to figure out how to have the biggest impact on your business and your people? Listen, you're busier than ever, but you're also under more pressure than ever before. The We're Only Human podcast has been running for over 10 years, helping leaders get a handle on these topics. I'm Ben Eubanks, the host of the show, and I started my career as an HR practitioner and executive. Now I run a research firm dedicated to exploring the trends affecting work and the workplace. We cover research from a practical lens, technology changes, compelling case studies, and more, so that you can get back to work and have the impact you've always wanted to. And we do it with some fun. Check out the We're Only Human podcast today.
Now comes the part that I think stops people in their tracks.
Yeah.
Yes. The social anxiety hurdle.
Yeah.
It feels needy. You're calling someone up, maybe you haven't spoken in a year, and saying, hey, can you do this favor for me? It feels like an imposition.
It's a common fear, but I want to flip that logic on its head using the source's perspective. Think about how you choose a mentor.
Okay. You look for mutual respect, someone who guided you.
Right. If that relationship was real, if they truly are an advocate, they want to help you. They want to see you succeed.
So we're just projecting our own insecurity onto them.
Largely, yes.
Yeah.
Salemi points out that true advocates enjoy singing your praises. It reflects well on them, too. It shows they mentored a winner.
That is a much healthier reframe. But let's play out the worst-case scenario. You ask, and there's a long pause. Or they say, I'm not sure I'm the right person for that.
Then you have just received a massive gift.
A gift. A rejection feels like a punch in the gut.
It stings, for sure, but practically. It's a bullet dodged. A reluctant reference is a bad reference. There is nothing worse than a lukewarm endorsement.
The damning with faint praise scenario.
Whoa.
Yeah, he showed up on time, mostly.
Exactly. If a recruiter asks, would you hire them again? And there's a 3-second hesitation, you just lost the job.
Wow.
So if someone says no or even hesitates, thank them and move on immediately. You want enthusiasm. You want the person who says...
You'd be crazy not to hire them.
Correct. So don't force a yes out of a reluctant person. You're just sabotaging yourself.
Okay, let's say we have our team. We've asked them. But you can't just disappear for 5 years and then pop up asking for a favor, right? That feels so transactional.
And that's where most people fail. You can't be a user. This brings us to the radar screen concept.
I'll be the first to admit, I am terrible at this.
Yeah.
It feels like networking, which always sounds kind of slimy to me.
It doesn't have to be. It's about intentionality, but it doesn't have to be high effort. Salemi suggests the usual stuff, LinkedIn comments, whatever, but she really emphasizes the personal, remember, birthdays.
Little things.
See an article relevant to their industry, send it with a quick note. Saw this and thought of you. You're treating them like a human being, not a stepping stone.
It's relationship maintenance. You check in when you don't need anything.
And that makes all the difference.
There's a timing element here too, right? When is the absolute best time to secure a reference?
Immediately.
Like right when you're quitting.
Or finishing the internship or wrapping up a big project. That is when the memory of your work is freshest. You ask right then, I'd love to stay in touch. Can I count on you to be a reference in the future?
You lock in the green light.
Exactly. But, and this is a critical nuance, that green light has an expiration date on the details.
What do you mean? If they said yes, they said yes.
They said yes to the concept of you, but let's say 3 years pass, you're applying for a new role, you cannot just put their name down without warning.
Even if they already agreed.
Even then, the rule is always reconfirm. You never want a recruiter calling your reference and catching them completely off guard.
Ooh. Oh, right, that guy from 2023.
It looks unprofessional for you, and it puts them in an awkward spot. So you always reach out and say, hey, I'm applying for this specific role. Is it still okay if I list you?
It's basic courtesy.
Yeah.
Plus, it gives you a chance to do that relationship maintenance we just talked about.
Precisely. It warms up the connection.
Okay, I want to pivot to what I think is the most valuable tactical takeaway from this entire article. This was the aha moment for me.
The tip sheet strategy.
Yes.
I honestly think this separates the amateurs from the pros.
So break down the tip sheet. What is it?
It's basically a cheat sheet you create for your reference. When you reach out to reconfirm, you attach a document. You say, to make your life easier, here is a quick summary of what I've been up to.
I can hear some listeners wincing. Does that not seem incredibly arrogant? Here's a list of why I'm great. Please read it to the recruiter.
I get that reaction, but it's all in the framing. If you frame it as, do this for me, yes, it's arrogant. But if you frame it as, I know you're busy, here's some notes to jog your memory, it's helpful.
You're being a project manager for your own candidacy.
You're guiding the conversation. So what goes on the sheet? 2 things. First, recent wins. Tell them what you've achieved since you last worked together.
Right.
Second, and this is crucial, the specific skills the new job wants. And the source says to really focus on the soft skills here.
Because the resume has the hard skills. The resume says proficient in Python.
Exactly. The reference is there to validate the soft stuff, teamwork, adaptability, leadership. So you say, this new role involves a lot of crisis management. Remember that time we handled the vendor outage in 2024? It would be great if you could mention that.
That is brilliant. You're not putting words in their mouth. You're giving them a specific anecdote to tell.
And you're taking the pressure off them. They don't have to rack their brain for an example on the spot. You just handed them one.
It also ensures that their story aligns perfectly with the story you told in the interview. It's strategic consistency.
It closes the gap.
Mm-hmm.
If you say you're great at conflict resolution and your reference tells a story about you resolving a conflict, that is a slam dunk.
I love it. Okay, let's talk about the mix of people again. We mentioned diversity of sources, vendors, bosses. What about the timeline? Can all my references be from my job 10 years ago where I was the absolute hero?
I would not recommend it. This brings us to the balance of recency versus diversity.
Okay, so I can't just live in the glory days.
Employers want to know who you are today. You might have been a rock star 10 years ago, but have your skills atrophied? So the rule of thumb is at least one reference needs to be from a recent role within the last couple of years.
To prove I haven't turned into a slacker.
To prove your professional attributes are current. But older references are still valuable. They show a breadth of experience, longevity.
So the ideal mix is maybe one recent supervisor and then a former client or a mentor from a few years back.
That's a strong portfolio. It shows consistency. But if every name on your list is from a decade ago, it raises a red flag.
It goes back to quality over quantity.
Always. Salemi uses the phrase, in a heartbeat. You want 2 or 3 people who would hire you again in a heartbeat. That is so much better than 6 people who vaguely remember you.
In a heartbeat. That's the gold standard. Okay, let's fast forward. We've prepped them, set the tip sheet, the references get called, we get the job. Are we done?
Not quite. There is one final step that almost everyone forgets. It's about closing the loop.
You mean thanking them?
Well, yes, gratitude is non-negotiable. Send a thank you note, maybe a small gift. But there is a strategic element here, too. You should ask your reference a specific question.
Which is?
What did they ask you?
Oh, that's sneaky. I like it. You're gathering intel.
It's high-value intel. If your reference tells you they spent 10 minutes asking about how you handle conflict with management, that tells you exactly what the employer is worried about.
They have a conflict culture, or the last person in the role had issues with the boss.
Exactly. So when you walk in on day 1, you know, okay, I need to be hyper-aware of my communication with management.
So references aren't just about getting the job. They actually give you the cheat code for succeeding in the job.
If you use the feedback loop, yes, it turns the reference check from a hurdle into a launch pad.
This has been such a massive reframe for me. I feel like I've been treating references like this annoying homework assignment, when really, it's your reputation management strategy.
It's the proof of your career capital.
Okay, let's recap the journey. We started by realizing references are the forgotten element.
Right, and we redefined them not as references, but as advocates. We're looking for champions.
We learned the magic number is 3 triangulation, and we need to look beyond just the boss. To vendors, clients.
We talked about the ask. Don't be afraid. And if they hesitate, take the hint and move on.
And the tip sheet. Don't make them guess. Give them the script. Remind them of your wins.
And finally, close that loop. Get the intel and use it to hit the ground running.
It's actionable, it's strategic, and it takes the fear out of the process. You know, we always try to leave the listener with something to chew on. What's the big takeaway for you?
Well, I kept thinking about the inverse of everything we discussed. We've been so focused on how to get references, but the real question, if you want to build a career where this is easy, is a bit more personal.
Go on.
You're relying on relationships to get a job, so you have to ask yourself, are you being the kind of colleague right now that others would want to be a reference for?
Oof. That's a mirror moment.
It is. The strength of your future references isn't built when you ask for the favor 5 years from now. It's being built by your actions today, in the meeting you just left, in the email you just sent.
Are you doing work that makes people say, I'd hire them again in a heartbeat?
That is the ultimate career hack. Be the person someone wants to brag about. If you do that, you'll never have to worry about finding 3 names.
That is the perfect place to leave it. Listeners, are you building your future advocates today? Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.
This has been From Dorms to Desks, job hunting tips for those early in their careers. A podcast brought to you by College Recruiter job search site, which believes that every student and recent grad deserves a great career. Each episode, we dive into tips, tricks, and insights that will help you land your next part-time, seasonal, internship, or entry-level job. Subscribe to this podcast for free now, so you don't miss an episode, and visit www.collegerecruiter.com to find your next great job.